Okay, so, I don't know if I'm going to be making this into a separate video because the physical setup took quite a long time. But yeah, if this is a different video, then hello. We don't normally do 3D printer stuff, normally we do music. But this costs me a lot of money, so I need to kind of milk it. Also, I'm not inexperienced with 3D printers, and 3D printers aren't the worst tool to have around, even as a musician. So, with all that out of the way, the physical setup was horrible. It was pretty abysmal, and I didn't even technically finish it in the last video, if it was the last video. So, let's go over what I have done now, because I did some stuff off camera, and it frustrated the hell out of me. Let's start with the bed leveling. So, bed leveling is slightly machine assisted, which is nice. Let's start by turning the machine on. So the first issue that I have is that around the back here, the power is on this side of the machine, but the power plug is on the inside of the machine. So you have to go and reach around the machine, first of all, just to turn it on, and you have to go around the power plug. Extremely inconvenient and annoying. Oh dear God. So, now we wait for this thing to boot up. It says create a 3D life with full pleasure. It does that every time. It's nice and cute and everything, but at this stage of me setting this thing up, it's really annoying, and you can't turn it off as far as I can tell. Now, as you can tell, it's got lights, and if you saw them in the last video, I don't remember, they were white before. You have RGB options, so you can turn it between red, green, or blue, or white, or off. Those are your only options. You can't customize it any further. But, you know, it's so cool that it's even there. So, you know, be thankful for what is there. That noise is quite annoying. It also does little jingles for certain other things, like I think it jingles when your 3D printer, when your nozzles are at max temperature. I might be wrong about that one. It jingles when certain tasks are complete, and not all of them make sense, because I think it actually doesn't jingle when your nozzles and stuff are full temperature, but it does with certain other little things like manually leveling and stuff. Anyway, here's the thing. When you're in the middle of a leveling task, let's just say you go into your menu here, you do tools, because you only have the 3 options on the front, and then you click on leveling. It will, actually, what will it do? So yeah, it just starts you. This thing's also really loud, only sometimes though. Like when it does this, it's super loud for some reason. But yeah, when you hit level, it brings you right into it. You can't cancel that doing that, but it does let you back out from this menu. But there are certain times where it's really inconvenient that it will not let you back out. Continue to Z calibration? No. I accidentally clicked on yes because I thought it was saying continue Z calibration, which is, I was thinking that was the bed leveling, which it is not. But yeah, and then you, in order to get to the other calibrations, you have to go through that leveling menu. So now we have to go into leveling again. So now it's going to re-home, which luckily it doesn't have very far to go, of course. But let's just go through the process here, because there's lots of little itty-bitty frustrating things about this printer. So we hit next after it homes. What the? That might be way too close. Where's my little? I was using this level page because, you know, why not? Normally I use regular paper, but this is a little thicker. This is way too close. I don't know why. So I did do some calibrations on my own, at least tried to, obviously. I don't know, it obviously didn't work out too well. Yeah, so The machine is assisted. It assists you in moving the nozzle to each of the thumb screws, which is really nice. I do at least like that. Why is this thing so high now? I guess the screws must have loosened? It's hard to know exactly what caused this, but I assume it was that the screws loosened or that the springs pushed it. You know, they're too strong. I don't know. There's a few different reasons why it could happen. And now we're on to our last screw, which only has the 3 screws, which is a little iffy, especially that the 2 screws, the side with 2 screws, is on the inside. I would have kind of rather had it be on the outside, since the outside is already kind of unsupported, because it's just it's for the most part a floating bed. It only moves up and down and is only held from the back. Level adjustment finished. God damn, it still got too close. Alright, finish. Continue to calibration Z-axis. Yes. What is it doing? It's just dragging on there, dude. Unless it was just barely off. It doesn't look like there's a scrape on the build plate, luckily. So, it asks you to Z-calibrate both extruders, which makes total sense. And it says, please randomly select extruder to I thought I almost had a stroke because I was reading this. Please randomly select extruder to calibration. Personally, I think I would rather if it just started with the left, because it makes you do both of them anyway. So what's nice about this is that it does bring it up so that you're hopefully not dragging into the ground, into your build plate. Unfortunately, it didn't do that. It should really have you... It sucks that these are both, that the bed leveling and this are built into the same system, because there's no manual way, as far as I know, to put up the Z height. I'm trying to remember the right terminologies. But yeah, it makes you do this after you level the build plate, which is kind of an issue. So it's just kind of a real issue, you know? And then on top of that, you don't have a knob to do this quickly, so you have to kind of just let this thing do its thing. So you have to put this here, and then you have to just tap up and down. It's not working currently. What the there we go, now it's working. It's very unresponsive, this touch screen, especially for a process like this. Come on. Now what's a little curious to me, and what's a little strange, is that this Z leveling, every time I've done it, it's needed to go up. When I started, I had tightened the bed leveling screws all the way down, and I had accidentally skipped the bed leveling thing, so I went directly onto this. So it was at like -0.2. Then I redid it all, and it was up to 0.2, and now it seems like it's going to be up to 0.75, something like that. Let's see. So it's 0.65 now. So overall, it still is going up. It's also not being calibrated correctly, I'm seeing now, because there's this little bit of filament stuck on the frickin' tip of the extruder, and I can't do much about it, because there's so little manual features about this. Which also means my leveling might be a little off as well. We have that one. So now it's going to do the other one, which this one should be better. We're just going to put it to the same height, because we're going to put it to the same height as the other one, because they kind of just need to be, because they both run on the same axis vertically. So yeah, I don't really understand on why on this machine they would have you adjust individually. And then the X and Y axis I haven't even done yet. They asked you to start heating stuff up, so I didn't want to even bother with that. So we're not going to continue, but so you can do manual movements with all these digital buttons. There was a menu to do all the individual adjustments, but I don't. Okay, so it's under the settings, which is a really stupid place to put it in. There's also an expert mode, which I'm not new to 3D printing by any stretch of the means, but I'm worried on what that's gonna actually do. At this point, it might be helpful. So we've leveled the bed, we've done the thing. So now the first step that it wanted me to do in the book was to load the filament, which was one of the most annoying processes I have ever done. So, as you can see, these spools are on here. These spool holders have these little clips that hold the filament in place. I'm not really sure how well these are going to work with other spools, especially cardboard spools, which are what I prefer, so that you have an easier way to recycle them and get rid of them without causing absolute mayhem to the planet in like 10 years. Yeah, one of the things it recommended was to load the filament in this cross section. I don't know how well it actually works yet, because I haven't been able to print anything. More on that later. But loading this filament was one hell of a task. So there are these clips that hold this tubing, which is not a firm tubing whatsoever, and they say to simply push plastic in here until they say to simply push plastic in here until you see it come through the extruder. It does not work like that. So I was sitting here pushing, just trying my best to get it through there, and what it ended up doing was pushing this tubing upwards and pretty much out of these first clips, at least on this side, because the white was the first one that I loaded. And so I got it to snap back in there. I still haven't been able to get these top ones to snap because they're just so dang tough to get in there. I tried with all my might. I cannot do it. I had to look up how to load the damn filament into this machine. Let me get you back on the front side. I'm going to turn this off, so hopefully I don't knock the fans out of kilter too bad. And yeah, I don't know if you can see, but yeah, down here's the power area, which is inconveniently inconvenienced by the spool holder. Which is another thing. I tried while working on this, I had this spool on here ready to be loaded after I was done with this one. Having that thing in the way while trying to feed this in there is extremely annoying. They're so close together. It is just so obnoxious. I don't know if I'll get used to it later, but this is pretty bad. It's really annoying. Okay, so here we are from the front angle, hopefully getting a better view on these. I think you gotta get in a little closer. So one thing I do want to mention is one thing they did do right on the physical design of this machine. There are these super sturdy built-in handles with quite a bit of finger depth. So, because this machine is heavy and it is pretty clunky to move around. So, at least they put that on there, which is very nice. That's one thing they did really good. However, there are many faults, and handlebars are not going to save you from that. So, when I looked up how to load the filament, this one lady came up, and she said how you have to do it, or how she does it, is you pull this tubing out. So you have to push down on the little trigger. You can't really see it, but this trigger, this lever trigger, is very sturdy and resistant. Now, usually those words are good. However, in this case, it makes it a pain in the ass to try and get things in and out of here, especially if you're trying to work on the back and you're trying to like load filament. So you're trying to hold this, you're trying to hold the tube, and then you're trying to hold the filament. Well, you gotta hold this thing as well. So yeah, you have to push down on this thing, and then you gotta pull that out. And then you take the filament and then you gotta try and find the hole, which is like 3 holes deep or something like that in there, and you gotta try and feed it in there while holding the trigger clip down. So, first of all, this is not a good design. If I have to take the guiding tube out every time, it's kind of bad. Especially if the guiding tube, it doesn't actually guide the filament into the hole. It just guides it in the general direction of the hole. So, yeah. So then you have to put this in. I think that you don't need to push the trigger down for putting the tube back in there. But another thing that really bugs me is that once you get the filament in there, when you're doing the loading function, it is constantly trying to suck up the filament, which also sounds like a good thing in concept, in theory. But in concept, while it's sucking it up, if you've got it successfully in there, it's starting to spew out filament uselessly. So you're wasting like 20 to 30, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you're wasting like maybe 10 millimeters or so. It spews out plastic at a quite substantial rate, which is not a good thing for this. It'd be nice if it was sucking it up very slowly. However, it is just trying to whip it out of there. So, yeah, I don't like that. Because I'm very much conservative on my plastics, because quite simply, I can't afford to be just pooping out plastic like that, you know? That's why I went with this type of machine rather than a machine that needs a purge tower, or like the Bamboo Labs. Even though the Bamboo Lab was out of my price range, that one still has quite the purge. It has quite the waste. So then my complications don't end there. So the first issue that I ran into is I don't have an SD card reader. This machine only takes USB or full-size SD cards, which they give you a 16 gigabyte SD card, which is pretty nice actually. That's quite substantial, especially just for G-code files. But yeah, I don't have a way to write stuff onto it. And then I didn't think to put the thing in the SD card in the printer, even though they usually give you, like starter files. So I put it in the printer, and it has a few different files, which luckily this thing lets you go through files, so you can better organize. On the Ender 3, everything has to be in the root file. But yeah, going into any of the files, they all said there was nothing in there that was available to be used by the machine, which makes sense for most of the files, because most of the files are like PDFs or videos that said different information. But there was a file specifically called test prints, and that one came up with nothing. All it came up with was a ... and then it would have me pull out back into the root directory, viewing the rest of the folders. Sorry, I've been saying files, which is not the correct term in computer stuff. So, then I run into the issue of not being able to write on it to even be able to test this thing. Well, my dad reminds me, because since I have micro SD cards, we have a bunch of the full-size SD card adapters. So cool, I can write my file onto the micro SD, put the micro SD in the adapter, put the adapter in the machine. Awesome. Not awesome. Doesn't work like that. Now, it could be any number of reasons why it didn't work. It could be because the micro SD card I couldn't find my SD cards for some reason. I thought I had a couple extra micro SDs, but I can't find them. So I was using a micro SD card out of a guitar pedal, a looper guitar pedal actually. So it was kind of a generic one, it wasn't a SanDisk. So that could be a reason why it didn't work. Another reason that a possible reason it didn't work was that the adapter I was using wasn't a SanDisk either. I wanted to try the knockoff one first. I write some G-code in Cura, I think. And either way, I tried to write some G-code. And so I plug it in, and it says SD card error, and doesn't even let you try and access it. It just doesn't work. So at this point, I'm so hot, hungry, and tired that I'm just done. And then I've been done since then. So we're now going to try to remedy these things because I did order an SD card reader that reads microSD, full-size SD, and then 2 other formats that I'm unfamiliar with. But yes, we're gonna try and use the regular SD card and hopefully read and write to it. Let me get some example footage of how this thing is, because I'm probably going to delete everything off of this. And then we're going to go to the software side, which is a whole nother bag of worms, because that is one of the that's one of the reasons I spent like an hour on the hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on the software side trying to figure that out. So we'll go to that next. Okay, so we are with the printer again, obviously, and I'm going to hopefully try and give you a relatively first-person view of what I'm seeing through the little camera. So, we're going to take the SD card. This is the one that came with the machine. This is the one that we saved that file on. We're going to put it in the machine, face up, and then I know it's hard to see the screen because it's pretty reflective for some reason. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's the lens or if it's the screen itself. But over here is print. It does read the thing at this time. Ooh, so we got something here called dual benching. It reads it. Well, let's print. Okay, so we got this. I'm assuming it's auto leveling. It also appears to be heating up properly as we speak. You can't really see the numbers. I don't know if it's actually heating, but it says that the target temperatures for both extruders are 200 Celsius, and they call it the platform, but the build plate says target temperature is 60 Celsius. It appears it's only heating the build plate for now. It's fine. There's settings down here. You can't. It's hard to see, but there's print speed, so you can that's strange. And then you can also Z offset a little bit. That's filament. And then you could forcefully stop if one side has failed and the other is not. So you have the option to keep one print going while turning off the other. However, the options are very lightweight, and that was all. Yeah, we're gonna wait for this thing to heat up. We're gonna hopefully see how this thing goes. I mean, we're gonna look at the probably the start and then the finish, probably not the middle because I don't really have a camera that's equipped to do that. But yeah, we're gonna watch this thing hopefully set up. So I was just trying to set up the camera hopefully for a better angle on viewing the heads going, but looking at the machine and lining this all up reminded me of why I don't have the plastic cover on anymore. And that's simply because they said not to use it while printing PLA. I don't know why. But the other one was that I don't know which one of these fasteners, or whatever you want to call them, one of these tubes, power tubes, filament tubes, whatever, something was kind of wobbling this thing. I don't know if it was because it was getting caught on the lips. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. I don't know if it was because it was getting caught on the lips and then coming free, but it was wobbling it around. I'm also seeing some chipping on this thing. I don't know if that's caused by, I don't know why that would be caused by like the braided cable or anything like that. It's very strange. There's no reason why I should have done that, because I haven't touched that part, and I can't drop it on that side, on the inner side like that. Oh, look at it go. So the nozzle's heated up much faster than the bed. Jesus, this thing is making... This thing is making a whole lot of robotic computer noises. Holy crap. This thing sounds like a dot matrix freaking anything. I was gonna say dot matrix printer, I don't know if that's a thing, I think it is, but... holy crap. The fans are loud. The stepper motors are abysmal. Oh my god. This thing could make music if you're into dubstep and shit. Well, I'm gonna let this thing go. It's not that loud that's gonna ring out throughout the house, but it's definitely loud. And I'm also gonna close this back up. I opened it because the reflection was quite strong. Hi there. So, we're back again, and as you can see there's nothing on the build plate, but we do have these two lovely little boats down here. Sorry if there's a little more noise, I do have the Ender 3 going right now. As you can see, for the most part, these boats actually turned out pretty fine. They're actually like really good prints. There are almost 0 blemishes on the boat, which was a very... I'm probably going to need to get different shots, but yeah, there's pretty much no blemishes on the boat, there's no overhang issues. Very cool. However, I didn't think that I put the nozzle that tight to the build plate, but unfortunately I did. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of fuzzy and hairy, simply because, well, it's not really fuzzy, but it's not a smooth thing. Or anyway, it's basically when I came back to take these off of the build plate, I had to get my hand underneath and really wrench it upwards because it was really tight on that build plate. It might have helped if I turned on the heated plate, and that might have helped get it up a little bit. But that also might have helped damage the bottom of the surface. Either way, I guess somehow I got it too close because it just really stuck down on there. Both of these are the same way. There's also, I noticed this when I was first loading Filament, but I didn't show it because I was just trying to get this thing going. But there was some cool red filament that was coming out of one of my extruders that was like this clear or translucent red filament, and I guess not all of it was purged because I got this little pink like outline of the boat here, or on the bottom of the boat. I think it's definitely purged out by now. As you can tell, the top of the boat and everywhere else is fine. There's no pink to it. There's some slight imperfections right along here, but that's okay. There's a little banding and stuff around the boat, but for the most part it printed really good. So what I'm really interested in is doing a multicolor print. Unfortunately, I just don't know how. I'm going to have to do more research on that. As you can see, I've also changed the LED color to show that off. The blue looks nice because it matches the theme and the branding of the printer, though it doesn't really help me see what's happening on the build plate, I think. The red looks okay, but the red is not nearly as bright, which I think is due to science or something like that. Maybe there's just not enough voltage for red to be as bright. But I think there's a scientific reason for blue being brighter. But I think green's also brighter. Oh. I think it's just because red's a darker color, technically, so it kind of just blends in and doesn't bounce off the walls as much. But yeah, the green is, I just like green, so that's pretty cool. The blue looks nice because it matches your build plate and stuff, and then the white just kind of goes with everything because it's just putting a white light over things. And then of course you can turn it off, but that's kind of lame, don't you think? It would probably save you power if you are really trying to like save the cents and penny pinch your business or your home. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave the green on. I think I need to adjust the build plate, and then I'm gonna do some research to try and find a dual color print instead of doing two separate ones, because I did get this to work in their, I think it's called like Flash Print, their slicer, because I could not get Cura to work, obviously. I think I mentioned that before. This is happening this whole video is happening over the span of like 3 or 4 days at this point. I think it's been 3 days now, and I don't know, I might have to wait till tomorrow to be able to finally finish the video. So just a quick update. I have just re-leveled the bed, and I did it so there's only a slight, very slight grab of the included paper. Because the way I was doing it before was I was doing it so there was some grit to grabbing the paper, because usually that's how I do it with the Ender, but I guess this thing's a special little snowflake and it's doing its own thing. Why is plus Z bringing it down? I mean, I understand that it builds up by bringing the platform down, but it still should be Z going down, I think. Oh well. So I need to go do some research on how to get this thing to print one model with multiple colors. Okay, so I just messaged Flashforge support because I have been sitting here for about an hour or so, maybe an hour or two, I don't know, it's been a long time, and I cannot find a setting on Flash Print, that's their slicer software, to be able to do a dual color extrusion model. I tried doing a benchy model that is sliced into 2 different pieces, and as far as I can tell there's no way to select what the extruder, or which extruder is going to slice what, so when it slices it, it just slices it as one model, as a normal benchy. So it's editing me here to kind of explain the situation that happened figuring this out, because I think that the explanation was in the video of my screen recording. So what happened was I was supposed to right-click on one of the models, and then apparently there's supposed to be a thing that pops up, you know, and there's a little drop-down menu, and then it'll have a thing saying select left or right extruder. Well, the first time when I was using it and trying to figure this out, the time where I contacted support, it wasn't allowing me to do that. So then they come back and tell me this, and I'm just sitting there like, what? How? No, it's not that easy. And then I go in and do it, and it's just that easy. And it just works. So, I don't know. It was a very frustrating thing for that to happen, because it seems so simple, and I don't know how I would have missed it, but I guess I did, or it wasn't working one time. I don't really quite know. So, as you can see, I finally got a 2-tone print to work. I still have no clue how to do it in Cura. I used their own little program. It's been a couple days, so I don't remember what I've said. I'm interested to see if this thing's going to be wrenched onto the build plate, but in doing research, trying to figure out how to do it in Cura, because I still have been trying to work on it, apparently this is supposed to be a removable build plate. What? It appears mine is not, if it's supposed to be. On the Amazon listing, it says that it's supposed to be a removable, flexible build plate, but this is like glued on or something. It's not, unless it's just that strong. No, definitely not supposed to remove that. I saw a little bit of glue under there, so yeah, that's definitely not what's supposed to happen. So let's try and get this off. As you can see, it was quite a bit stringy, and it is still adhered to, like, oh my god. I'm interested also to see how it performs without these prime towers, because logically, these little wipers should take care of it should make these things obsolete, but I just wanted this one to work, so I did everything that it said I should do. Except for it said that it wanted a skirt or a brim, something like that, on these, but it just wouldn't work. If I put a brim on, it did it on everything, or it did nothing. I turned on the brim for specifically these, and it just didn't do anything, so I don't know. I hate the slicer that they provide, but unfortunately it's just what you have to deal with because they want it to be proprietary, I think. And I don't understand why. No, Allie, stay. I have my big dog with me. I don't know why they would want it to be proprietary because they don't even get monetary value out of it, so they're just kind of being assholes about it, you know? Anyway, we gotta try and get this thing off. Oh my dear God. Alright. So, like I said, the stringing is a little bad. You can see, I don't think this camera is going to be fine enough to pick it up, but there's a lot of string. Well, you can see that glob right there. There's quite a bit of stringing in the middle of it. This is really hard to do. You can see this glob up here. There's a fine strands all around the middle. Obviously, all of that can just be pulled off. This one did not turn out nearly as nice as the first one, but that's to be expected. There's probably a lot of tuning that you need to do to get this to turn out real nice. The surface finish is pretty bad. It's got a lot of lumps. There's also a little hump right here. It's not a fine curve down like it normally was. Do I have my boat? I do. Oh, actually it's not always a fine curve down. Okay, well, either way, it's still very rough, especially on the right here. Probably one of the more steep overhangs. Under the arch here, each side has its own little droops. It looks like they only drooped once, so it's nothing too bad. There's little stringies where it's like the thicker loops, not strings, but yeah, they're on the roof underneath. For the most part, it came out pretty good. There's some bleed, there's some color bleed for some reason here and there. It's hard to tell with this camera. I wish it would frickin'... Can it focus? That'd be awesome. But yeah, there's some bleed a little bit here. It's not the easiest thing to see on this camera because I'm still figuring this thing out for different uses. But yeah, overall it's not the worst, and I think for the way that I intend to use this printer, it'll work pretty good. At least we'll see. The slicer showed these ridges that would show up on but they looked a lot more pronounced on the slicer. I think it's just because you're looking at it way closer. This is way smaller than it looks on the computer. You can definitely feel them, but you don't really see them. The only place that I can kind of tell where a ridge is on this vertical piece right here, because for some reason this blue one like stuck out a little. So it's definitely interesting. It works for the most part, but there's some tuning that needs to be done, of course. I don't know. I think I'm ready to go on to my final thoughts on this. Without doing the tuning, there's not much more that can be said. So I don't even know if it'll be able to be tuned. We'll see. This thing, I don't know. It's kind of a disappointment. It prints well, decently, but I can't figure out the build plate yet. I guess I'm gonna have to set it up real loose in terms of height, because I tried setting it up even looser this time, and it still is really stuck on there. So I might have to do it pretty loose with the nozzle height. In terms of everything else, the build quality is nice, but there's a lot of little things that really are annoying, especially in the back area where things are most important, including filament loading, you know, filament changes, turning the damn thing on. These damn tubes, all of the back area is kind of just abysmal. I don't know why they couldn't put the power switch on the front, but even the ender doesn't do that, but at least they put it on the right side so that when you reach around, you can get the switch without being blocked by the power cord. It's hard to say if this thing is worth it. It definitely doesn't feel like it. For $600, this thing doesn't even have a bed leveling system. There are like $200, $300 printers that have a bed leveling system. An automatic bed leveling system is what I mean. And this thing would be one of the things that would need it, because then you could have your automatic bed leveling for each of your nozzles, instead of setting the Z offset for each of the nozzles manually. Well, I guess you'd still have to do that, but still, even if they had a bed leveling included, they probably wouldn't do it well. I think a lot of companies have that issue. I did the bed leveling modification for the Ender 3 V2, and I did the Creality bed leveler prober, and I did their firmware, and their firmware didn't really make proper use of the bed leveling software, so I installed some third-party firmware, and it functions way better. But the way that these people are, they don't even let you use another slicer, so it seems like they're kind of trying to lock it down. I think you're going to have to just make your own judgment based off of what you've seen here, because unfortunately it's just the way it is. There's not many options for IDEX printers, so you kind of have to just, it's either this or this one other printer that's more on the style of an Ender 3, just a little bit bigger because it has independent heads. But they both cost around the same price. So you can't really win. You have to just pick your battles. Setting up their proprietary software is not difficult, because they're trying to just make it plug and play. And then this whole enclosure can technically be a heated enclosure. It doesn't specifically work as a heated enclosure, but it does function as one. And I do label that as a feature on the Amazon listing in some of the sales material. So the quality of the machine is good. Unfortunately, there's a lot of little downsides. The downsides: build surface, abysmally small. They literally could have extended these out a little bit and given you a little bit wider of a space. Not to mention there is a little bit of forward and backward space as well, so they could have made it bigger. I don't know what the limitations were when they were designing it, because there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we don't know, but I feel like they could have managed to make this at least a little bit bigger sideways, since they can't have a big 220mm by 220mm square build plate like a Ender does. And that's just the start of it. You have these tubes that are not bowed in because it is a direct drive system, but these guiding tubes just get in the way when you're loading filament. You have to pull these out and load the filament separately and then reinsert that tube. And then on the back, the tubes are not even secured properly because the clips are so tough to be able to just get to work properly. And then another con is the filament loading, the filament spool holders. You can see the clips on the back there. They don't, I've heard other reviews that they don't even hold normal filament spools properly. These ones that it came with, obviously they're going to want to have that fit properly and be like, oh man, so cool, isn't it? God damn, why is my nose so itchy? But yeah, apparently that doesn't fit spools, and then on top of that, they kind of get in the placement of them, they get in the way of loading each other's spools into the tubes and getting to the power supply switch, which is another inconvenience. So like I said, there's a lot of little things that just make this thing really hard to be like, yeah, go buy it. Because unfortunately, there's just a lot about it that is quite frustrating. Another pro is they give you these cool LEDs. The downside of the LEDs is if you wanted pink or purple, you can't have that. Or orange, you can't have orange. You can't have any colors that aren't green, red, or blue. And then you can have white or off. Okay, so a bit of an update. I just got done editing the rest of the clips that I have from the Creator Pro 2 video. And here's how the printer's going now. It's gone. I returned it because it wasn't performing how a $600 printer should, at least, especially up to today's standards. Because literally, I think the day after I finished recording the last clip, then I found out, I don't know if it happened around the same time or what, but I had just been like researching the P1P and other alternatives to the Creator Pro. But yeah, the P1P went down in price because they came out with like the P1X. No, I think that's the expensive one, but they came out with the newer version that had the enclosure. So they dropped the P1P by $100 down to right in my budget that I had of $600. So I thought it over for a few days, and the color bleeding was just out of control on this machine. I mean, that's not true. It could be manageable, but I don't know how. It would have taken so much time to try and figure it out, and it's still wasted material no matter what, because you needed your purge tower. You needed your purge towers because the scrubbers did nothing. They weren't scrubbers, they just blocked filament if it were to fall out of the nozzle, which it never did. So then when it comes back to start printing, it leaves this big bump on your print. So the whole point of buying the machine was to reduce waste, but it ended up creating more, if not the same, at least. So even though the P1P doesn't print multicolor like I wanted, I still bought a P1P because it's a more reliable printer, and it's kind of, that one's definitely, that's like mostly plug and play, where once you get it set up, it just kind of goes. It's able to print fast, reliably, and accurately. So that's why I got rid of it, because in the end, I think this is just an outdated printer. I don't know exactly when this came out, but there's an updated version of it that's like, it's like $1,000-some. So it's called like the Creator Pro 3, and it's just not, it's way more money. So maybe it better be way better. But yeah, this one, Creator Pro 2, I just don't think it's worth it anymore. It might have been worth it when it came out. It might have been new, innovative technology, but they have not updated it since, as far as I can tell. And it certainly doesn't perform the way that you'd think it would, or at least you'd think it should. So I heavily cannot recommend this printer. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's all I have to say that's left. So for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.